Oh man, there we go. Of course, as today has gone, internet trouble off the bat with me, so I apologize for that moment of nothingness. Puck Talks, yes, Artemi Panarin traded. We decided, we'll go live with this one, see where it goes. And Steve O, obviously the return Liam Greentree third and a fourth, based on if the team goes beyond the second round, the LA Kings, that is. So Artemi Panarin is an LA King. He signed a deal that's for 2 years, an extension 2 years, 11 mil AAV. Rangers retaining 50% this year. Chris Drury just had a media only press conference. And in the 30 minutes, I had to follow it, like everyone else, not on a live stream, not on television, on MSG networks. Um, refreshing our feed, which we did all day. The Rangers knew that he wanted LA this morning, waited until 3 o'clock to make that deal. In fact, knew that all day and didn't try and maybe get more out of it. We'll get there. I know we'll get there, but and this press conference has pretty much informed us of nothing. So that's the way today's gone in Rangerland, Steve O. I know your opinions on the trade, but let's dive a little bit deeper, obviously, than surface. What are your thoughts overall?
Well, first of all, nice hat. That's gonna be like,
Yeah, whoa. We got to start there. Nice hats we got going. Little merch tech.
of course. But I when I saw this, first of all, let's start some puck. Let's talk some puck. Let's talk some puck. Rather not talk some puck after this. And based off my reaction there, you know where I'm going. Um, this is just disappointing. I mean, all around. I think if there was one thing that really was like, okay, this team is got a long way to go in terms of being, where we want to be. It's this trade, and there's a lot of different factors that went into this. We're gonna jump in and talk about all of them, but raw reaction here. I'm disappointed, man. I mean, this was not a good trade at all whatsoever. I mean, honestly, this is probably one of the worst trades uh, as a New York Rangers fan in my entire lifetime. I don't know if you agree with that, disagree with that, but raw reaction, I want to flip it to you. What are you feeling?
You know what, Steve? I actually like that you mentioned that. I don't think that's been talked about. I think we've seen a lot of the legacy talk, some of the very specific things, but yeah, I think the way you just framed that is interesting. Like, it's very quick, band-aid, ripped right off, salt still all over the wound, but is this arguably the worst trade? I mean, listen, I don't know where you stand. I personally look at this and say, listen, like Jeff Gorton signed that no move clause, and you signed that any day of the week in 2019. Now, I know that's controversial to some, but I do think that you sign that no trade clause no matter what, because in July 1st, 2019, the days leading up to that, in fact, the night before, it seemed like he was going to swing to the Islanders. Um, I know everyone remembers that in Rangerland. You signed that no trade. You think you're contending in 2026. Like, I don't you're not thinking ahead like, "Oh, that last year of the contract, we might not make the playoffs." Like, no, the point of signing that player was to advance your rebuild and to lock him in. So, although actually, again, this is not at Drury's fault, I will say the criticisms I have of Chris Drury are obviously the trade itself, the assets in return, the fact that LA signed him for 2 years. I mean, the Rangers couldn't dig into the pockets and get 2 more years out of Panarin. And but to what you said, Steve, I mean, I always thought growing up the OBJ trade was probably the worst to endure because it was like he was still in his prime. Although I do find the wide receiver position the last number of years now in the NFL seems like the most replaceable in all of sports, talent wise. But do you think it's the worst trade you've seen? I mean, you just said it's the worst you've seen as a Ranger fan, but maybe in all of New York sports?
Oof, I'd have to think about that. I don't know, that Josh Donaldson, Gio Urshela Yankees trade, I think it was pretty bad. But in terms of the Rangers, I think definitely for the Rangers, 100%. It's just disappointing, and I'm glad you mentioned, the Panarin extension, 2 years, 22 million. That's not crazy, not a whole lot, and I'm glad you echoed what I've been saying here on the podcast because I've not been hearing anyone else in Rangers land, talk about that. And I agree with you, man. I've only been saying it for the last month here on the show. I mean, you
I can't believe you and I have come full circle to this because I've been against it the whole time.
but I mean, when you just look at to me, and I think this move shows the cards in the deck. I mean, this team has no direction. I mean, you look at this year, you look at last year, you look at the moves we've made in trading Truba, trading Kreider, trading Panarin. They're just moves. Like I'm not seeing a plan here when they come out and they say on WFAN and Dolan says the Rangers have a plan and Jury says we have a plan. And I mean, we come out and release a letter. I'm not seeing a plan. I'm just seeing moves and they say, "Oh, we want to retool. This is not a rebuild." How is this a retool? How does this trade help this organization be better within the next 2 to 4 years as a retool and not a rebuild? I don't see it. And I'm sorry, but at this point, if I knew this was what the return was, I'm keeping Panarin, dude, because this is like a bag of potato chips over here. It's a big, big gamble for this organization to see, what's going to come out of this. And I do want to be fair to Drury. I think we have to be fair. He really had no control in the situation, and we knew that, but I honestly didn't know it was going to be this bad. This was a Panarin trade. Panarin was in the driver's seat the whole way, and if these reports are correct, he only wanted to go to LA, which makes sense, and which is why we got the return that we did for a free agent. But I mean, us retaining the salary too. I mean, it's just not that many positives. Very, 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 very minimal positives from our side, and it's disappointing because again, I know you're going to agree with me. I know every Ranger fan is going to agree to me listening. And if you do disagree with me and you're listening, I would love for you to comment below and let me know where I'm wrong. But how does this move benefit the Rangers in the next 2 to 4 years? I just don't see it happening, man.
Yeah, so what interests me about Green Tree is that the number one thing that was said about him is foot speed, which I feel like was every prospect's issue coming through this organization the last, close to decade plus. But the fact, the bright side is that he did have a pretty stellar season last year in the OHL. He lost Ilya Protas, Alexi's brother, drafted by the Capitals. He's now in their system with Hershey. And apparently the fact that he lost him as a line mate has affected his play a little bit. It's cut his point total and projection in half for his D2 year in the O. And obviously, Will Cooley played for the Windsor and was another player that the Rangers traded for out of the Kings organization. Well, they traded for the pick and then selected Will Cooley. So, no, actually, I think they traded for Will Cooley, correct? They traded for him as a prospect out of LA.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, this is the second player coming through that same system, if anything has to do with that. But I think overall, what's disappointing is we're looking at Chris Kreider was moved, Artemi Panarin was moved, and although obviously they're very specific situations, your direct return for them was 2 third-round picks, one with a condition, and Terrence and Greentree. Um, and obviously, like you said, like this was a Panarin-driven deal. Um, his agent, one of the top in the Indo, was looking for a big swing here. He just got Kirill Kaprizov, the biggest bag in NHL history last summer. Like we knew that going in. We knew this going into the season. The number one thing that disappoints me, Steve, and it's so funny that you and I have gotten to this, like this is the way it all worked out, just based on the discussions we've had on the show, is that uh, you know, 2 year extension. I mean, the Rangers really weren't willing to give him a 2 year extension going into a rebuild. Like, where's the what are we spending the money on? There's no free agents out there.
Exactly, dude. And I I said here on the pod, man, go back a month ago and listen to the receipts, dude. I said like a 2 to 3 year contract. Like I'm okay stretching to 30 million. I'm okay with it. And you were like that. You were like that's not happening. Like it's just not gonna happen. He's gonna want more. And this deal was so obtainable. Why did you let him walk for this
Well, you
return?
don't
I'm
blame me. I mean,
dumbfounded.
the reports were that he wanted 4 to 5 years. That the reports were he wants to play until he's 40. Like, that's why I think I'm so taken aback by how this all went down. Like, they knew in the morning, and instead of waiting for a better return, apparently they contacted for Will Smith and Ryan Leonard. I know, way over the head of the Rangers on that one. I totally understand that that was a big ask. You're going to get rejected no matter what. You still have to ask. You got to give Drury credit that he did ask for those two former teammates of Gabe Perreault in the obviously development program and then Boston College. But I just can't believe that if this was the return that you knew or that was offered this morning, you waited until 3 o'clock to make the deal, essentially. And this is the only place Panarin wanted to go. You couldn't table it and say, we got to try for a better offer than a prospect. Seems like a pretty good prospect, but prospects we know all too well in Rangerland, they are a question mark. And a third round pick that could turn into a second round pick. Not even one of their first round picks. LA, a team with their next 3 round picks available.
Yeah, I mean, second is like the bottom tier of this. I mean, you couldn't get a second. I mean, it's disappointing, and man, are we a dumpster fire right now. I mean, just all around, there's just nothing positive coming out of this organization. Again, Panarin owns the no movement clause in this
Steve,
contract.
we're talking right now, not to cut you off. We're talking right now, and there's a press conference with the general manager. We can't even watch.
Yeah, I know, and that just goes to show you that they know that we got the short end of the deal on this one. I probably don't want to show face after this, and I don't blame him. I don't want to, but again, we got to be fair. I've been very critical of Jury lately, but in all fairness, Panarin really, he informed us that he wanted to go with the Kings, and that's how this deal went down. Jury was just fighting for table scraps, and honestly, I think getting a deal done now as opposed to after was it February 22nd or 23rd when the roster freeze lifts. That was probably the better move for us is waiting until then. Maybe you could get a better return then. Obviously, Panarin wanted to get traded. He don't want to sit there and skate on his own, and he wants to get in with his new team and acclimated. And as soon as the break ends and the season resumes, he wants to be out there. But I mean, and then the Kings wanted that too. But I mean, that was not what's in the best interest for the Rangers at all. I mean, there was urgency in this on Panarin's side, and just didn't help us. We got the short end of the stick, and I'm just dumbfounded that we
The Rangers
couldn't
didn't
match
have
that.
to be urgent. I think that's the part that I'm bewildered by.
Exactly.
Like, actually, I totally hear you. I think it's funny actually that you're playing devil's advocate and I'm the opposite. I feel like we usually play a different role here. But no, man, I'm baffled that, like you just said, I mean, if you're the Rangers, I mean, we'll never know. But I'd really like to know, like, did they even try to hold on and say, like, hey, we might try and push this to the deadline? Like, I can't believe that's not close to what they're at least what's being suggested by the very limited knowledge we have of this situation.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's talk about this presser real quick that's going on. The first 30 minutes, we had two tweets from each reporter, and that's not a slight on Vince, Colin, Molly. Like, they're doing their job. We have we had two posts on the timeline about this press conference. Like, you just traded an all-time player. And we had, like, for lack of better terms, like, glaze on that and how great he was in New York. We know that. You traded him. Very limited conversation, at least, about the return. And so far now, I mean, they've pretty much dodged the conversation of a timeline. and by classifying this as a rebuild, which now it clearly is. Like you just traded Panarin and didn't even get a blue chip prospect, not even a guy in the NHL, not a Graf, not a Brant Clark, like nothing to that level.
Yeah, I'm with you, and he's been one of the best Rangers, or he's probably been, or he's one of the best Rangers that I've seen in my lifetime. He's been my favorite player. Simply, the best free agent signing in our history, and he's probably one of the best and most exciting players that we will see in our lifetimes on this
Oh
team.
yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah. Skill
how
wise for sure.
how could you let him walk like that? Again, it's really not a surprise to me because we knew this was coming, but why was that not in the plan to keep him and retain him for that deal? I mean, how could you let him walk? It just makes no sense. What is the plan moving forward? It's stupid. It makes no sense. And I can't defend the organization, from the top. I would love to know more from you, more if you have any more insight on what you found out of that press briefing. I'm sure a lot of our viewers listening probably aren't attuned to that.
And
So
again, like I said, I mean, this is like a minor inconvenience, first world problem, but like the fact that I've been sitting all day trying to scroll to find out about Panarin, then you got to scroll to find out about a press conference. Why is this not being aired? For the 900th time on this episode, I'm saying it. Honestly, unfortunately, I'm trying to keep up with it at the same time that you and I are talking. So obviously, I'm being attentive to. I value your opinion. And that's why we got the show, but. Um, it really just unfortunately I don't like to use the word softball, but like you'll know exactly it's very, very simplified answers. Like being asked about is it a retool or a rebuild, and Drury stating something along the lines of like, oh, we're not gonna address that at this time. Then why are we hosting this press conference?
yeah, it's
Um
unfortunately like this is the question that we've been on the fence here at Puck Talk, and we are clearly headed towards a rebuild. I mean, this is no fucking retool at this point. I mean, if you're listening, let's be honest. There is no retool here. Who the hell are you bringing in that's going to turn this team around? This team is so broken systematically to the core. And it's sad the window of this team has passed, and I don't know the next
You know,
time.
let's talk about that, Steve-O. I mean, this is really sad. I'm looking at the stats today. I was really doing a deep dive on all the players, Panarin, from this time period that, the Panarin era. I think that's how we're always going to refer to it. 2019 to really, I guess, 25, 26, unfortunately. But um, it's really two Stanley Cup runs. 21, 22 was actually unprecedented. The
Mhm.
Tom Wilson incident and the two losses against the Islanders that spoiled the team's comeback in 21. COVID cut off the first year, which was actually really fun, 2019-20. And then you lost to the Devils in a killer game 7 series with like a super team. And after that conference final series loss against the Panthers, like it feels like that was the end. And it feels like it was so swift and quick. Um, And at the time, July 1, it really felt like we had so many years of potential ahead, and now it's just slammed shut. Um, you think about the team in 23, 24. Shout out my man, Jimmy VC. Um, we just followed each other on the media page and whatnot. And I was thinking about Jimmy because I'm interviewing Jimmy VC 3 years ago for a column on the Hockey News. And like, you think about how good our fourth line was. Goodrow, VC, they would plug in Pitlick, then Rempe, Edstrom. It's like that team was so deep. The 21, 22 year, deep. The top players were performing well. Now, I mean, without Fox and Igor in the lineup right now, the only player remaining, ironically, is Mika Zibanejad, who I felt like was carrying the torch at the start of the rebuild, right? He had that 70-point year in 18-19, and it was like, oh, this guy is really coming on. At least he can kind of guide these younger guys. And he was also younger at the time, too. He was like 25, 26. So um, it's even more painful to think like a guy like Lafreniere is getting to that age now.
Yeah, and it is very sad, and it's just where like I'm just at all now because you got to accept we're headed towards the dreaded rebuild, man. You know, because again, even within that Panarin era, you know, still think there was a couple years where even a minor retool like just couldn't get us over the hunch. And Panarin was our. Let's be honest. I mean, every fan here should be acknowledging that Panarin really was our best chance to kickstart this rebuild. But now this team will need to swing a few more deals in order to really restock this organization. You know, and we do have the players to do that, but again, it's so disappointing that our biggest superstar couldn't bring in a bigger haul on its own. You know, and again, you can't really blame Drury on this because it's obvious that Panarin held his own fate here. But I mean, I blame Drury and Rangers management for not keeping him at 2 years, 22 million. That is so doable. I mean, you talk about a retool. You talk about your best offensive player, a player that over the last 5+ years he's been on this team. Every year he's been on this team, he's led the offensive numbers in every single category. This is a play. This is undoubtedly your franchise player. Like offensively, and to just let him go for that, it's so disappointing. And again, I'm not disappointed because I knew this trade was coming, and I spoke up, and I honestly think more people wanted to keep Panarin than it seems in the medium. But again, it's just very disappointing, you know. If we want to sit here and we want to give, you know, people love grades, this is a D plus on the Rangers end. I mean, this is not a good haul, man. What do you think?
I mean, you know, I hate grades,
Me
but
too, but everyone loves them. So
um, yeah, I'll say like C plus because to me, uh, you know me, my water right now. Look at this, Stevo. What do you see? I naturally see a quarter full. Gosh, if I drink a little bit more, maybe that's where the Rangers are at right now. But um, I also, as much as Green Tree is a we don't know, and I do not trust right now the Rangers to develop him. I do think that I do have some hope that, like, you know, he becomes an NHL guy. Um, I don't know. I also think like this situation, this was unless the team was winning Stanley Cups, which was the hope when Jeff Gorton signed him in 2019. This situation was always going to end like this, and it's sad because you know I felt like I said this last year about some of the players that kind of left New York. It's like whether fans love them or not at the time that they were traded. You think about fan favorites we watched. Henrik Lundqvist went out with a heart condition, you know, in a season that was canceled. Zook, right? Like Zook. I mean, you could name your favorite player. They probably left the Rangers unceremoniously. Mark Messier left unceremoniously. Yarmir Yager, I mean, he was on a 3-year stint and he left unceremoniously. Like every guy you could name probably left the team unceremoniously. Whether it was right, whether they were done justice or wronged. Brian Leach, Mark Messier called Brian Leach greatest Ranger all time. He got hosed by the management and traded. So to Toronto. I don't know, man. I see kind of like if you look from that perspective, I think what's unfortunate is that if the team wins a Stanley Cup, like, you know, you're obviously not in this situation overall, and he was a big part of that puzzle. I also don't think we can't like we have to acknowledge that Panarin also didn't get this team over the hump in 22 or 24, unfortunately, or 23. He put up 0 goals in that series against New Jersey. Like, I'm not here to rank on Panarin as a performer, but I think we can't not acknowledge that. Not here to pee on the tombstone, like just to state that regular season performer, the best, arguably in Ranger history, the best free agent signing in Ranger history, a fan favorite, a personality. having the chance to meet him, like in the locker room, media wise, like he was one of the easiest guys to talk to. He did not treat you like he's a superstar and he treated you very well. I saw him treat every other reporter well. He treated me well. But at the end of the day, they did not win with him. And there were years that they could have. Um, and there's blame, I think, to go all around, whether it was coaching, management, and on the player. And I do think some years were not on him. Some were unfortunate circumstances. Some were on decisions made by management, and others were simply, I mean, kind of dropped the ball in 22 and 24. He was not that guy. And we've talked about this on the show at length.
I gotta blame management on the direction that this organization is going in. I've stated here before, I don't trust this organization moving forward. Yeah, I just don't. I don't trust them. I think this organization was very well equipped in 22 and 23 and 24 to make moves based on where the franchise was. Now we're headed into such a different area, and one that we really haven't been in quite some time. I just don't, I can't trust them to navigate. And the fact that, circling back to it, the fact that there was no first round pick in this deal, um, not even a second. I mean, it's crazy again for a franchise player. I mean, we sat here on in the last few weeks and we talked about our dream hauls and all these players and picks coming in, and we didn't even get 25% of that. And I guess we got
They
some.
said that the report was that the Rangers were starting with the Brock Nelson haul,
Yes.
like the Brock Nelson trade, which they held on to him on purpose to boost his stock. He's an older player, didn't perform well at Four Nations. They still were able to boost his stock to get Cal Ritchie, who's in the NHL right now, top tier prospect, a pick, and further. Like it's I think it is quite baffling that when you look at that, Johnny actually just posted a video about that. Like when you look at the Brock Nelson move, Panarin should be bringing in more than what Brock Nelson brought the New York Islanders.
Of course, not even a
Period.
question.
Period.
I mean, we're at the point where this is not even a dollar store discount deal. This is like charity care deal. I mean, it's sad not getting anything, and it just it's sad. It's sad. It's disappointing. To look on it from the flip side, this is a great deal for the Kings. I mean, y'all people love grades. This is A minus. The Kings need offense. I mean, I saw this earlier. They're only like ranked 29th in the league in offense, which is horrible. I would have never guessed that in the position that they're in. And Panarin provides plenty of that. I mean, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, he leads us offensively in every category since signing in 2019. Even in a down year this year, he had 57 points in 52 games.
Yeah.
That still speaks volume. In Los Angeles, the position that they're in, they're not doing too well in goals against average, offensively all around the board. So Panarin will definitely give them a little bit of a boost on that end. I don't know if that's going to translate to more wins. That'll be interesting. And with the Kings sitting 1 point out of a playoff spot as of today, they're trying to go out on a postseason push. It's how do they get over the hunch? You look at the last few years. I mean, got to give them credit. They've been making moves. They've just not been able to get past Edmonton. And
Yeah.
Kopitar's final year, they want to get over this hunch. So I think it's a good move for them. And getting Panarin for another 2 years will definitely help the Kings after Kopitar retires. So I think it's a great move for them.
You know what? I think it's a good move, but they got a lot to still doctor up. I mean, they had arguably the worst summer, right? Um, and like you said, something I'm a history nerd. I we gotta ask some of our guests when we have them on. Maybe some of the older folk. Maybe we'll ask like a buddy out like Alan Krita who loves NHL history. He writes for the AP. Like, is the LA Kings 4 year uh drought of a first round win against the same opponent? Like, I wonder where that ranks all time for like the Rangers never in the Islanders dynasty, they were never able to beat them those years. This is up there. They needed an offensive talent like Panarin to help them get over that. I mean, to me, I don't know if Panarin's the guy though that gets you over the hump against Edmonton. Like
I'm
you're
with
not
you.
matching McDavid, man. He's
I'm with
almost at
you.
100 points. We're a little over halfway through the year.
I'm with you. I'm not saying this gets them over the hunch. I'm saying this is a good starting point. This is still a team that needs more moves to make.
Mm.
But again, I think Panarin certainly helps. And just when you look at what they gave up and what they got back in a player like Panarin, you know, people love to use the term fleece nowadays. This is a pretty good move for them. So good for them. I think if you're a Kings fan, you're ecstatic. But over back on our side, you know, just disappointing all around. I do want to take a moment to talk about um, Green Tree. I think he is the most interesting part of this trade. Big player. He weighs over 200 pounds. He was a first round pick. If you go and actually look at his stats, they are pretty good. When he was in I think the Ontario Hockey League,
He's still there. Yep.
he was a
He's still
captain.
there.
He had like 23 goals in over or less than 40 games. His numbers from a year ago are crazy. I mean, you gotta look them up. I mean, they do
Yeah.
look
Wasn't
out
it
at
like
you.
147?
Yeah, it's
And he was
crazy.
playing with but some of the reports immediately from scouts were like he was playing with Alexei Protas' brother Ilya, who's also supposedly like a freak like his brother, like just sick, big player, like a vessel on the ice. Um, so his numbers have kind of dropped this year. So they're saying like was he kind of getting a lot of production and kind of a dependent on Protas, but I don't want to cut you off because I do agree with some of what you're saying. Like I do. Keep
Jump.
going, Steve.
No, I was gonna say I seems like he's got good size. I'm hearing comparisons similar to Jamie Benn. Solid playmaking ability. But I'm hearing the two things from scouts that I'm hearing is that his skating needs improvement. And defensively, he's very weak on the defensive front. And that's not good. I think it's good that he creates his own offense, but it seems like people who know puck are saying that he's projected to be a middle six forward and not a first line player. Again, not the kind of not the kind of expectations we want here in New York. And I know it's way too early to talk about that. But it's just the fact that we can't develop players. I mean, it didn't matter who we brought in. It's still the fact that we can't develop anybody brings any asset that comes in the door down. And the fact that we got a third and fourth, it's very small list of players to come out of the third and fourth round that have been successful. And we can't again we can't develop. So this organization has a big problem. That's where I stand. Very disappointing day, man. I really couldn't think. I wouldn't have fathomed this, weeks ago. Again, thinking that we're gonna get a Brock Nelson haul over here, and it's funny how things worked out. But I mean, Panarin had control of this situation, and he really did screw us, man.
And it's within his rights too. But
Oh yeah, if I was him, I'd do the same thing,
yeah,
of course.
um, I'm sitting here wondering where the 1.2 points a game is. I mean, we knew this was coming, but you think to yourself, I don't think another player on the roster holds a candle to that production. And this is a Ranger team that, with Panarin, Fox, and Shesterkin, when they were in the lineup, they were struggling, like mightily struggling. The worst home record, arguably ever, at least in the modern era. They have 6 wins at Madison Square Garden with a player that put up 600 points in 480 games. Like, I it's funny, Steve. I look at things optimistically, but right now I'm looking at this and saying this is going to be a long road,
Preaching
a
to the
long road.
choir, brother. Preaching to the choir.
On
Um,
February 4th, right? Like February 4th, it's going to be a long road.
yep, it is. And again, when you can't get, you're just down so bad. when your best trade asset gets such a low return. And that's where we are in New York Rangers hockey. It's disappointing. It's sad. Look at this. I got my wall calendar. This was at the start of the year. And look at that. 3 players on the front, not even on the team anymore. So look, that's how things went to shit so bad. Jacob Trouba, Chris Kreider, and Artemi Panarin. Um, so yeah,
Steve-O, here's a question for you.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, how important is Vincent Trocheck's return now?
Well, first of all, I'd ask you, would you trade him at this point? I mean, I just
I
don't.
think
Oh, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
think you have to get like a not who knows, first of all. I hate projecting because clearly no one saw this coming. Um, but I do think that the Vincent Trocheck return has to be significant because like you have to drive his price as high as you can. This can't be like, oh, we know he's on the trade market and we know teams want him, so we're just, we're gonna have to figure something out. He's got no protections or what, 12 team no trade list? Fine. Yeah, he's not going to first of all, he's on a bottom three team. He's not going to Vancouver. Like, thanks, we know that. Um, Centers are desired in the NHL right now. We know that his return has to be significant. This is not Einstein rocket science here.
Hmm.
Um, but unfortunately, I would say the Trocheck return would normally dictate a general manager's job. Dolan backed Drury already. He endorsed him. So, like, unfortunately, if Trocheck's return is subpar, it doesn't matter. Like, Drury's seat isn't warm if that happens, which is crazy.
Yeah, I want to go back quickly. I want to go back to Green Tree. Did you have any other thoughts or opinions on him or that part of the trade? Because I know we pivoted quickly on that. Did you
Green
have any
Tree,
other thoughts on him? Yeah.
just every part of his build, his like player genetic makeup just reminds me of Will Cooley, which is a good thing, which is a good thing. But you're gonna win with a team full of Will Cooleys.
I'm with you. Will Cooley's a good supplemental piece on a Stanley Cup winning team, but when you have a team full of Will Cooleys, um, then you're not gonna be that much successful, especially in today's National Hockey League. Um,
Unfortunately, Steve-O, too, like this Green Tree, unfortunately, is now linked to this trade. Like so is Terrence to the Kreider trade. So like I feel like no matter what they end up doing, like it will always be viewed as that, which is kind of unfair. But unfortunately, I think that's the way fans view it. You traded two all-time Rangers for prospects that are question marks.
yeah, I'm with you. Back to the Trocheck. Um, I think you could probably get more than Trocheck. The situation's a little bit different than Panarin. Um, However, I given this trade and given I don't trust this organization right now. Do you want to trade him? And you say, you know what? Maybe this is a Kreider situation. We go back to when we were in middle school, in high school, not trading him and retaining him. And look what he did in 2022. In the playoffs. Is his stock going to be higher on this team in the coming years? I think the answer to that question is obviously no, trending downwards, given the fact that you got rid of Panarin. But I'm not sure. I don't know. Again, I know everyone's like, we want to trade our assets, we want to get capital in. Again, we don't. We had a number 1 overall pick and a number 2 overall pick. And look where one of them's playing, not even on our team anymore, and the other one is just not playing well at all. So it's just so disappointing. This team um, can't develop, and what's this phrase? Rock in a hard place. That's where we're at right now. This is rock bottom. Can it get any worse than this?
Uh, you know what's actually funny? Like, I feel like if you know that they're rebuilding, and this is why I think the last regime did this a lot better. If you know they're rebuilding and you're like, all right, yeah, it's time. That's what the last, like, the end of Lundqvist era felt like. This is like one move, the Goodrow situation seemed to cause this enormous domino effect that's gotten us to this point where the fan base didn't really feel the team obviously was looking to retool, rebuild, whatnot. I feel like half the things I'm saying on this is like so like just in the minds of all fans to begin with, like nothing novel. But here's the one thing I will say, and you mentioned trading Trocheck. You have Laba as your 3C. You can find a 4C. You're rebuilding, you can find a 4C. You do not need a Sam Carrick. Maybe he stay. I mean, I think you should trade him. Try
I
and get
think you
some
have to
value for
trade
him.
him at this
Teams
point.
need centers, but
Have to.
um, Trocheck moves. He's your 2C right now. Put JT Miller there and bring up Cooley, bring up another prospect and play him with Zibanejad and Perot. I think Mika Zibanejad at this point in his career is more than capable with playing with two prospects. Now, they got to be, I think, ready. Like, I think it's got to be a guy like Will Cooley who has NHL experience to at least play up there. Maybe you move Loft over to the left wing. Um, but yeah, I think Trocheck, easy question. You would say like, oh, we don't have centers in the pipeline, but you do have Laba, and you could just move Miller down, and now you have at least three. You know, you have two veteran centers and one guy who's played NHL games at center. So I think you can find a fourth line center.
I'm with you 100%. And honestly, pairing two prospects with Mika, I think could play to the benefit of whoever that might be. And Mika again gotta tip the hat. Mika, I think, has had actually a pretty good year. It
Yeah,
just stinks that around him has been a dumpster fire, and I think unfortunately he's not going to get props to that. And I think if this Ranger team was much more competitive, a lot of people would recognize that. I think Mika has definitely had a better season than the prior few. But
yeah.
unfortunately, that I mean, the year is just so bad and it's gone to shit now. I mean, obviously, you just hope that we lose out and the NHL blesses us with the first overall pick. But even now, like that's even nothing's guaranteed, man. That's just
Well, also with the new, I listen. I don't want to
well,
get into it, but
I know a lot of it's
unfortunately,
up.
I went out to Penn State this weekend to watch the outdoor game. I feel like this has overshadowed everything you and I were going to originally talk about, of course. Went out to see that game. It was an amazing experience. College hockey at one of the biggest arenas in the world, this side of the world at least. Obviously the news came out today from Onward State, recycled by every media outlet in sports that Gavin McKenna was involved in an incident where, he's facing legal action. So, um, even the top five picks now, depending on whatever happens, can look very different. I'm not going to go into that though right now. This draft is supposedly pretty deep, at least in the first round. But it's also upsetting when you see how some of the guys have come out of the draft last year and the year before. And you have guys on, their New York Ranger prospects like an Othman who've taken 6 years to even get to this level. And really, it's only he got a new lease on life because of this situation. Lafreniere struggled. Like, I think that's why fans are rightfully disappointed not only in the return, but they're questioning Green Tree's capabilities. So,
Yeah, I'm with you. I think my last question I have here on the pod is, where do you go from now? Your jury, where do you go from now? Who are you trading? Who are you looking to trade? Who might you keep? Like what's next with this team? Let's go back to a couple weeks ago and play a little bit of a GM armchair now. Where are you going from here?
like first order of business is Trocheck, but gosh, obviously I'm not an NHL general manager or even close, but it's pretty obvious. I think your priorities Trocheck, and like they're fielding calls on everyone. And at this point, based on the Panarin return, they might have to dig in a little bit more than just the obvious guys. Like a rebuild to me is like you're really cleaning house. And um, Gavrikov just watched Panarin go. I've loved Gavrikov. He said he wants to stay. He signed the big deal to come here this summer. He was convinced by Panarin to take a little bit of a pay cut. Um, I don't know. This is literally thrown at the wall. Like, obviously, I don't have the sources to be stating any of the, anything of credibility with this, but like Gavrikov to me is a guy that's like he sees maybe where things are going. Does he turn around and say in the offseason, you know what? I'm going to try and compete. I'm 30 years old. Let me go for a cup. Um, and see if they can work something out. Braden Schneider. I mean, frankly, Will Borgen. I mean, it looked like a pretty okay deal at 4.1, but you're going to have him on the payroll for how long? Um, it's funny. I floated this, and it sounds like he's going to be a keeper, Will Cooley. But like, will you be guilty for listening on him? No. Um, and then I just don't think you're moving Lafreniere. But otherwise, like it, unfortunately, it's funny. A lot of folks online have said like, "Oh, well, this is a rebuild. Trade more than Trocheck." But now that I'm going through the roster, like, who's left to
Yeah.
trade? The rest of the guys are young. Like, you're not really going to trade Cooley. You might take some calls, I would say. You can't move Loft. You're not moving Perot. Okay, Radish. Okay. Um, Brodzinski. I mean, what are you even getting? Like, I love Johnny B. Don't get me wrong, but like, you're not getting anything substantial from that. Othman, you're not getting anything substantial from that. Carrick, maybe a contender overpays a little bit. What, a second rounder? Rempe, again, fans hate him. They want to see him gone. What are you getting from Rempe? Maybe a team pays a fifth rounder. Like, we're not talking anything that's gonna. The moves that like I feel like what's upsetting right now is the only guy I see left that can make that can net you something is Trocheck because Zibanejad would have to move his no move. I like the way he's played right now. I feel he can kind of lead this team to rebuild because he's going to stay. Even if you then think about trading him and you probably trade Trocheck, I mean, one of those two, like you can't trade both of them or you're going to have no centers. So I just don't know, man. Like this is a bad situation.
Yeah, I to chip in, I think I want to echo what you said earlier in the pod. I think guys like Sam Carrick, you can easily replaceable player. I think you got to chip him. I'm looking at Braden Schneider. I'm looking at Radish. I'm looking at even Johnny Quick. If teams are going to give up an asset for any of these, if you're going to go out there and make a big move in Trocheck, I think you got to kind of make up for this Panarin and the lack of assets in a sense. And, with the players I just named, I am totally okay with. Gabrikov and Cooley, I think they'll stay. I would keep them for sure. I mean, you got to keep some people on this on the team. I mean, we can't be the Harlem Globetrotters or not the Harlem Globetrotters, the opponent, whoever the hell they play.
Wait, let's look them up. What are they called? I'll look
They
it
actually
up.
got a sick
But I
name.
hear you. No, that's a very valuable point, Steve.
We can't be like whatever the name of that team is. Or we can't be the Bad News Bears of the NHL. I mean, be a complete laughing stock. So you got to keep some people. So again, I think Will Cooley, Gabriel I
You
think they
can't
got it.
just throw the young guys up. Like I think what the Washington Generals.
The Washington Generals. We can't be the Washington
That's so
Generals.
good. Um, yeah, you can't. Like I think some fans struggle to grasp this. Gabe Perreault is playing first line right now. Hopefully, he turns into a guy that can play 82 games on the first line. Do you think Gabe Perreault is playing 82 games on the first line next year? I
No,
hope so. Honestly, maybe it's 75-25. But let's go down the list here. I mean, Brennan Othman, like, if he goes up the lineup, I don't know. Is he capable of playing against top four defensemen
no,
night in and night out?
no.
I hope so. I hope
Of
maybe he
course, I
gets to
hope
that
so.
point, but I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I just from what I've seen, I mean, that is just things don't change overnight, and it's disappointing in here. You look at it, and it just makes you appreciate, the Henrik Lundqvists and all the other homegrown New York Rangers that we've had in our history, and players that have been able to perform in New York. I mean, it's just such a hard place to play in, and you look at Kako and you look at all these other players and Offman, it's a hard place to play. And, it just makes you appreciate the players that have actually, turned up, when the lights are the brightest. And it's going to be hard. And it's just today was a big, official realization that this is going to be a long, 2 to 3 years, maybe even more.
I think the return really hurt the perception of the move because I really do think going into this, a few things, like you said, just recapping off the top, the return, just like underwhelming compared to what most thought would be like a Brock Nelson type return. And the extension, I mean, he wasn't labeled as a rental and then he signs like a 2 year deal, 11 mil. It's just that's very confusing to me. Um, so listen, we knew he had the no move. And unfortunately, now you look at the rest of the roster, and I question what players are going to net enough to qualify. I mean, not titling this or considering this a rebuild because that's truly what it is, but to qualify advancing the rebuild enough to like not be a dreadful few years. You have two firsts in the summer, and I guess you and I will just have to wait and see, like everyone else, through the Olympics on what the Rangers are going to do or what the word is out there. Unfortunately, we also have to watch an Olympics that following four nations. We're USA guys. Like, hopefully they can bring home gold, but feels like that's another thing to add on top of everything else.
Yeah, hopefully that's like that'll be our Stanley Cup for sure. And I guess we'll be Kings fans or Kings fans to the extent of winning 2 rounds and finally beating Edmonton. Edmonton is standing in the way of us getting a second rounder. But we are down so bad that I don't even think we could beat the Washington Generals on ice right now. That's how bad we are. So it's gonna be a tough rest of the season. But whatever happens, stay tuned at Puck Talk CS. We will be here rocking these amazing hats, breaking down whatever happens New York Rangers hockey at Puck Talk CS. We will have you covered. And always remember, it's just the luck of the puck.